defending myself about it one day with Mother. Of course, Mother was widowed. All the other brothers and sisters were long gone. She and I were living together in the new little house, as we called it. And she was making some kind of statement or comment to somebody about what she was going to do, and she was left entirely alone. Her children were gone, and I was the only one left. I would have been 12 years old, I guess, and I made a commitment to her. Mother, don't you ever worry, I'll stay with you till I'm 40. And she interpreted it to mean that I wasn't ever going to get married till I was 40. She tell the story that she wasn't going to be alone because I'd committed myself to stay with her till I was 40, one way or the other, but I didn't get a chance.
Mother took care of Frances when her first one was born. They had the baby at home, you know, and that was
Pauline.
David. No, David.
Pauline both. David.
Yeah.
They were both born in the little house.
Yeah. Mother took care of them too.
Did you have any fads that, you know, that kids nowadays do, little dumb things that they either collect or, you know, hula hoops in my age?
Land, we didn't have a nickel to buy a little doodad nor have a fad of any kind that I recall, really. I can't think of anything.
You probably didn't get an allowance or...
Oh, are you kidding? $200 we have an allowance. We got, you know, we got a dime at the parade in Park City on the holidays, and that was the extent of our spending money. Our allowance was never a dollar. You know, the men on the work for $2.50, $3 a day. They didn't have much to go on. After the rent was paid, there wasn't much left, and the rent wasn't high either. I don't think we ever paid less than $10 a month for rent.
Or more than.
More
than or less than?
More than $10. It was always cheap. Maybe that's why we moved so much. I don't know. You moved? You remember the day? No,
cheaper to move than it was to pay the rent.
I don't hardly believe that's right, but
easier and cheaper to move than it was to sweep the floor.
Not knowing my mother, no sure. Not knowing my mother, but it was you wasn't with when we went up to Park City. That was Bob and Gloria and all of Tom's family. We all went to Park City here a few years ago on Memorial Day, and they asked me to take them. And Frances was with, and Doug, and all of Tom's family, and I guess most of Frances's. And we had down below town, there was the old ballpark then. I don't know what it is now. Condominiums probably. And we took them, I took them a tour. Joe and I led the parade. They all had their own cars. And we took them first to show them where Tom was born. And that little house is still there. And we all got out, we went up the ridge. And you could drive on up, you know, and gone on over and down around the King Road. But we drove all up, and everybody got out of the car. Now, there was a big slew of us, because there were lots of little kids. Some of them wouldn't even remember it now. And Christine was little, and we told her that's where her grandpa was born. She walks over and opens the door and goes in. That little house. And we said to her, "Oh, Christine, you can't do that. Grandpa, that's not Grandpa's house." And she, of course, the lady was kind of nice. We didn't all go in, but Christine got a peek inside. Now, I'd like to gone in myself, but I didn't have the nerve because I remember the house very well. But we went to what I started to tell you was how many houses I showed them where we lived in Park City that day, and I can almost count them on my hand, I think. See, 1, 2, 3. I showed them where Frances was born, where Tom was born, where Jim was born. The house that you were born in isn't there anymore, but it was then.
New house for each new kid.
Yeah, and Francis, I remember very well. But, of course, then I was, you know, the others, the older ones, I wouldn't remember their births because I was behind them. But I can't remember how many houses. And we showed him Grandma Thompson's house that day. And that's hanging in there on the wall. And that house looks exactly the same today. Do you want to hand it to Jimmy and let him see it? It's hanging right there on the wall.
Is that when we took a picture of that?
Yeah, and she took a picture of it the other day. It's that first one, I think, isn't it?
The house was up.
Did you all have
Yes.
gardens? Did you
No.
garden to
No,
get
no,
food,
no,
or did
no.
we just buy
Mary?
everything?
Yeah, that's the one. And that house still stands, and it looks the same, only some hippie painted it that psychedelic blue. He did. He just ruined it. But that little side porch, everything's still there.
Did you ever
That's
have
me.
pets?
Did I what?
Ever have pets? We're going with that.
We had one dog in our life, and that was when we lived on Nelson Hill, as we called it, down back of the ball grounds. There was a big house there we lived in. We had a dog, and it got killed. I don't know what happened to it. And we'd go out and pick wild flowers every day and put on the grave, and the cows would eat it off at night. So we would go back the next day and put more flowers on. That's me there by my grandmother.
Yeah.
And Floyd, Uncle Floyd, mother's brother, youngest brother. And Aunt Mel was in the doorway.
Did you see this? Bob?
Yeah,
They
we
took
got
a picture the other day.
picture of it last time.
Don't have to hang it up, just lay it there.
Now then, for Christmas and birthdays,
Oh.
did you give, you know, you said you got an orange or something, but
On Christmas?
did you ever give gifts
No,
to your
no,
brothers
no,
and
no,
sisters
no,
or anything?
There wasn't money to do anything like that. We never did anything like that.
How did you celebrate your birthdays then, or did you just
Mother
not?
make a cake and put currants in it and a little frosting on it. That's the only one I ever remember. No candles, no nothing. I think we never did go in for birthdays. Never. As long as I can remember, we never did.
That got me in trouble when I got married because that remained as a family
Yes,
tradition
that's right.
into
A lot
my
of families.
generation. And
That's the way
Judy's first
Tom's
birthday after
family
we got married, I
forgot.
just wished her happy birthday, and
It's all
it was
wrong.
costly.
Wonder if Steve got in trouble, because I did too.
No, we never did anything
I didn't
like
get in
that.
trouble. but-
Did you consider yourself poor?
We didn't know we were poor. We were poor, but we didn't know it. You know, we had plenty to eat. Good homemade bread and butter.
Does the term poor really apply? Were you poor?
Oh, well, sure, we didn't have anything.
Well, but did anybody else?
No, everybody.
Mostly no one else did.
Maybe the big shots in the mining companies, but
Yeah, but the people that you knew and associated with,
They were all
your
the
family
same,
associated
Pretty
with,
much
were
the
they-
same.
pretty much the same as we
Lived
were.
at the same level. The only time this became, I became conscious of this thing to any degree, although before I reached high school I was employed theoretically as a gardener, but as a playmate for a boy the same age I was. Up on the judge's places, these were very wealthy people. They were part of the judge family from the Park City mining, huge big home, servants and cooks and butlers and chauffeurs and all the things that go with it. And I got to be associated with those people. And then I became aware of the great difference
Then you can,
between us. See,
then you can compare.
and then when it really started to hurt me was, or when I started to notice it, let's put it that way, when I started to school at Granite and I had no decent clothes to wear and I had no money to buy a lunch and nothing to carry a lunch with, and frequently had to walk because I couldn't afford the nickel to ride the streetcar, then I became conscious of not having things.
But you would have been 15, 16 years old.
Well, yes, going on to that, yeah.
So up to that point, it really didn't.
Everybody, other than my association with the Bagleys, who had lots of things, I think they'd reached a point where they didn't have much money. They'd gone broke in the business and the farm degenerated a little bit, but they still had a wealth of food and household furniture and a beautiful home. But other than at that same period when I became aware of the distinction between the haves and the has-beens, but it never bothered me until I started going to school, and a girl asked me to go to a girls' dance with her, and I had no way I could respond to it because I didn't have anything to wear. Passed up a chance.
Boy, if you'd have seen what I was married in, you'd know how poor I was. That ugly old brown dress. Oh, I can see it yet. No new shoes. Run over shoes. But you know, it didn't bother me at all. Right then, it never do. I never knew what they bought.
When you got new clothes, were they bought or made? Did your mom sew?
Yeah, they made. Our mother always made our dresses. Yeah, she sewed all.
Mother insisted that my overalls and socks are clean.
Yeah.
And I would have to stay in bed while she washed them and dried them.
And it wasn't in a dryer either.
I would have to be without my clothes long enough for that process to go on.
But you know, on the holidays, like when other people would have big meals, we had something extra, you know, like a turkey, chicken. I can remember one time we had a goose. I can remember the grease in it. Now that's a lot of years ago, and I've never, if anybody ever said goose to me again, I wouldn't want any part of it. But have you ever cooked one? Yeah, they're funny shaped, and they're kind of flat, and the grease just oozes out of them. I think they use the goose
What do you
grease
think
for
they have to turn goose grease?
I think Mother made, she made that out of tallow. She used to make carbolic acid and melt down the tallow off of some of the meat that we get and make lotion for our chapped hands. And we'd get chapped hands till they'd just be bleeding, you know. Then she'd wrap them, huh?
That's because you played marbles.
Yes, because I played marbles. But the boys all had chapped hands too. I guess, you know, kids would wash their hands and they didn't dry them good, I guess. Maybe that still happens, I don't know. But,
now did she make your soap, that you said she made your soap?
She didn't make her, she didn't make the soap, just that lotion. That was lotion. And it didn't smell very good either. It wasn't the smelly kind, as I remember. But she'd melt down tallow. You could go to the butcher shop and get tallow, you know. Melt it down, and then she put carbolic acid in it, and that was the curing part of it. And she'd melt it down, make a lotion, and let it cure. Oh, my hands used to bleed all the time. And I had warts all over my hand. I'm still bouncing around, and I guess I always will as I'm talking. But you know, it's just all over the back. Now, you know, they say that's a virus now. I don't know what we blamed it on.
What it was then?
No, but it was just covered, just thick with warts on the back. And Lee Richardson was the junk man. He went around from door to door and gathered up junk with these horses and a little wagon, you know. And he had a junk yard there, right on Front Street it was. I could see the spot yet where it was. Now those people had a nice home, and I know where it was, and it still stands. And they had everything lovely in it, and they just had one daughter. And we was friends. Florence and I both was friends with her. Well, anyway, Mother had tried everything on these warts, and it didn't cure them, so we went down to Grace Richardson. His name was, who am I thinking about? Yes, that's right. Lee Richardson, that's right, was his name. And she said, he's got a grinding machine down there, you know, you had a wheel that you sharpen things with. And we put my hands on that and turn on the wheel and to get the warts off. And boy, did I have a sore hand, believe me. That was the wrong thing to do. It didn't cure the war, so. Oh, I remember that. You know, it's too bad she was in Park City to the last, not this reunion, but the year before last. Or was it this last one? I'd give anything to see her. We could have had a ball. Because she wanted to teach, she was a beautiful piano player. And she wanted to give me lessons. And we didn't have a piano, and she offered I could come to her house and practice. I just didn't do it. I don't know why, but boy, I could have been a good piano player. I'm sure I was good at everything else. But I didn't do.
Is this where you picked up your playing by ear?
You know, I've always been able to do that.
I never forget how surprised I was the first time she came down to St. George and proceeded to play on the piano over at the Elks Hall.
Yeah.
I'd never heard her play in my life.
I have one tune, and you know I've forgotten it.
Have you really?
I tried at somebody's house the other day. Give me a dry Kleenex, please. I have forgotten. And then there was one that Florence played. Florence played the piano pretty well. And there was one tune that she, and I just played by ear. I couldn't tell one note from another. But there was these two tunes, and everybody thought I could really play the piano, you know, and I couldn't at all. So, but this Grace Richardson, she'd have taught me if I'd have let her.
Juanita Brooks says in her book that down in Bunkerville they used to have some wonderful times dancing to the violinist and the other fellow played a violin and the other one a mandolin or something, and we just danced up the storm to Redeemer of Israel and Come Come Ye Saints because it was the only tunes they knew.
Now, did you do anything special? Did they have anything special on the 4th of July or Easter?
They had a parade on the 4th of July always. And on Labor Day and Miners Union Day on the 14th of June. We always had a big parade then. Now on Christmas we always got a new dress. Mother made us a new dress. And the 4th of July we had a new dress. Now I can remember she made me a pink dress on 4th of July, and I proceeded to climb a fence somewhere. And Dad, I had to go home and tell her I tore it climbing a fence. And this was just when I was really young, you know, just a kid. But we looked forward to those parades. We got that nickel and held it like it was $1 million. When they gave us a little flag, too. One of those little flags.
Was it from the city that...
It was the city that did it. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Hey, you old enough to remember the 4th of July parade when you and Alice May won the prize? They were quite a tradition up there, and as I went into working at the store then, I became one of the citizens committee to raise the funds and to keep that thing going, so I got quite deeply involved in that for 5 or 6 years.
Oh, Eddie Hawkinson always was in it. The woodman of the world, he represented. Brought an accident, a couple of dead trees on the truck. I think I could name some of the floats we used to have. Now we sang in the bandstand. There was a bandstand that stood, you know where what's the big memorial building is? There was an old bandstand that stood there. And that's where we had all the programs. And there was Grace Thompson and Emma and Christine Martin and myself and Isabel Buck and Gert Buck. We had a group that we sang together. And we used to sing it every 4th of July. You know, they had a program after that. And I always sang alto. Always. Now Florence and I could sing together at home, and harmonized very well. And I think that Florence, young Florence, and I could do that if we'd try. I won't say I could now, but I could have then. We used to sing all the time. We sang at church programs, and a girl in high school died one time, and we sang at her funeral. And we used to go up to, we was all around Bucks, gathered around Bucks, and this was after Florence had married Fraser, you know. And we'd go up there, and we'd be the same group, only the husbands and wives were together if you were married. I wasn't married then. And we could harmonize, and oh boy did we sing out. And it used to just be beautiful, and we used to sing with that group too, out in programs. We used to sing, what do you call what you sing one song right after another?
Rounds?
Huh?
Round?
Medley.
Medley?
Medley. We are four dudes, four dashing young dudes. You can tell by the style and the fashion, with a high silk hat and a neat umbrella. We are four dashing young dudes. Love put on the bridal veil. See, my best voice is with love put on the bridal veil. I put on my blossoms, I put on the bridal veil. There was 3 or 4 songs in that. See, now I've forgotten some of those. But that's the way it started. We are four dudes, for nothing we are. And it ended up by Dad's working on the railroad on the livelong day. You all knew that one. That's the way we always ended up. But we used to sing out all the time together. So I've done an awful lot of singing in my day, but not a fancy, what would you call them, a coloratura for I can't even say soprano.
Not even less colorful as alto.
Right now I'm on nothing when it comes to singing.
You mentioned singing in church.
Yeah.
Was church a part of early life?
Yes. We all went to church. We was all, Mother didn't go. Mother would stay home. See, we had Sunday school, and then not fast meeting, but church in the evening. And Dad always took us when he was, this was before his time. And we always went to Sunday school and church. Then when I got older, on my own, I'd go to church, and Grace Thompson would go with me. And I'd say, well, you go with me this week, and I'll go to your church next time. She was going for Methodist church. So we'd go down, and I said, now, if Friday Larson is going to be the teacher, or we're going right on through. If Friday Larson, and you knew Friday Larson, boy, he couldn't teach anybody.
You didn't know anything to teach?
No, he sure didn't. But when he was there, why, I said, just follow me. And we ran out and turned down the steps and out the back door. Went home. That's when I was old enough to know better.
I missed your mother's remark about Friday.
She said that he didn't know enough to teach anything.
That's right. And the family did they, the poor things?
I sure did.
Poor souls. Another one that used to gripe us as a teacher was Harold Piper. Do you remember Harold Piper?
Harold Piper is the name.
He taught school.
Slight fellow.
And he married
I don't remember him, I guess.
Verda Wright. And she and she's still alive. We went to school together. And one time there was a basketball game over in, I think it was down in Hoytsville or Camas. And you could go for 25 cents. And she and I were the only 2 kids in high school that couldn't go. I was talking to her on the phone not long ago, and she remembered that too.
But you didn't have the boy.
No. They had a great big family, you know, and we didn't have any extra money. So we took a walk up the head of Main Street, feeling sorry for ourselves, and went home and went to bed. The rest of them went over to the game. So that's how scarce money was. And then I was in high school then. So it was scarce.
Were you a good student?
No!
What?
She's a student.
I was good in some things. Don't ask me anything about mathematics, for they were the trial of my life. I had to have help with them constantly. Now in grammar and English, I was very good. I wonder if I could diagram a sentence now. I bet I couldn't. That was what we used to have to diagram sentences in English. Had a good teacher too.
Are there any family faith promoting stories?
No. Not that I recall. Do you remember you call with your mother? Maybe in Jim's time, but I don't remember. We used to sing an awful lot at home when I was real young, an awful lot. But as far as, and probably a lot of that was the Mormon hymns, you know, because we didn't have music. And Florence and I could sing real good together. And Dave could sing, and Russell could sing, and Gilbert could sing. Tom could sing. Tom had a good voice.
Well,
So we could all sing. Jim can sing. And you know, Jim would say, oh, my voice is kind of going with my double chin and all. A lot of wrinkles.
did you ever have any hobbies?
Nah. Can't remember any. What was the hobby?
That was a waste of time.
Besides playing marbles.
Yeah, played marbles and spun tops. And jumped the rope. My dad used to get so mad at me for jumping the rope and playing marbles for wearing out my shoes. He was always having to get me a new pair of shoes. And oh, he'd go down and he'd take me with him, but oh, he'd buy the ugliest old black kid, heavy looking things, lace. Of course, there was lace then. Oh, I went one time, he told me I could go along to get me a pair of shoes. And I came home with a pair of Mary Jane's patent leather. They went back.
Did he take him back or you?
He sent me back. But we had a good time at home. We really did. We didn't go anywhere. We didn't have picnics or anything like that. But I can recall when we was real young. I did when we was a little older. We climbed those mountains and we walked up to the lakes many times. Whenever any bucks had company, we all would, that was the thing we'd do. We'd walk up to Lake Brim Hall, was that the name of it?
Up on Bonanza Flat.
Up on Bonanza Flat, and then we'd take them down the mines.
You walked up.
We walked, always walked.
That's a fairly good walk up.
Pretty good.
We always
All my
walked.
Boy Scout troops walked up that hill with a pack and camped up there.
We never did ride up there until late
You
years.
didn't have a...
And then I hated it because there was boulders in the road and the ride was worse than the walk. Walking.
The troop committee never had a transportation committee to haul the kids. If the kids went camping, they walked. Which I always felt should have been the pattern from the very beginning, but I got outvoted finally.
We'd take lunches and we'd straddle a big log, you know, and that lake's deep, you know. I'll bet I wouldn't do it now for $1 million. We'd straddle those logs and kind of just float around on the logs on that big lake. And they all did say that was an awful deep lake.
You don't, do you swim?
No,
I didn't think
I
you
never did
swam.
learn to swim, no. But I used to do that. No, I never learned to swim. But we never did, you know, like family. going to the hot pots. A lot of families did, but we never did. I guess we couldn't afford it. I worked for some people that when I was 11 years old. And they had 3 kids. They had 4, because their brother lived with them. And I had to mix bread, and I did all the washing, I did all the ironing, I did all the cooking. And boy, my mother finally made me come home. And they took us to the Gertrude Wilson, worked for the Flanagans, and I worked for the Andersons. And they were great friends, and they took us to the hot pots. Not in cars, in the buggies from Kimball's Ranch, Kimball's Livery. And when I got $1.25 work for all that, a week for all that work. Well, to me that looked big, you know. Mother got, you know, they come and asked Mother if I could go, and so I did.
Did you get to keep that money, or did you donate it to
Oh no,
family?
I don't know what I did with it. I can't tell you. Probably bought penny candy with it. I don't know. But anyway, what was I telling you? Oh dear.
From the hot pots.
Oh, when we got to the hot pot, or the next payday, why, he only gave me $1. And I was bold enough to say, well, what about the 25 cents? Oh, that bought your bathing suit at the hot pots. Oh, Mother says you come home. So she made me come home. And I'll tell you somebody else I worked for that you would know. You would remember Dr. Bardsley, of course. You remember him?
Sure.
Do you, Alice? I worked for he and his sister in that big house they lived in. I got $2.50 a week there. And they had just stoves, you know, heating stoves, and the range had burned coal and wood. And their steps was worse than my basement steps to go down in the basement to get the coal and wood. And I carried all the coal and wood down, made the fire, fixed their breakfast, done the housework for $2.50 a week. And Mother finally made me come home. I was pretty near killed me. You know, when you're only 11, 12 years old, that's a lot of work. Carrying those big buckets of coal up the steep steps, worse than mine. Mine are terrible, but these were worse.
Did you mind doing it?
Oh no, I didn't mind. I thought I was making a fortune. But I don't remember. Maybe I bought myself a pair of shoes. I don't know for sure. Let's see. Have I told you anything about when Joe and I went to Wendover? I'm not counting.
Later, yeah.
Yeah, that was in the...
That was in the end.
Did you have any other romances in your life besides Joe?
No, heavens no. I didn't have time. I went with Joe for 10 years. I had one, Bill Whitta. I kind of liked him. He was a lot older than I am, and I think I went to one show with him. And he sang in this group. He and his family they were all boys, and they were all good musicians. And their mother was the organist at the church. And I thought I liked him one time, but just as a friend, he wasn't serious. So I just stuck it out with Joe.
As a teenager, did you have any ambitions to be anything besides
I was
married?
going to be a nurse once. Is that before your time?
Well, just as I was coming on the scene, you and Francis were still using up those
Oh, Francis got some
uniforms.
We had Gilbert worked all in the tunnel, the Sparrow Tunnel, and I decided I was going to go be a nurse. And I got all my credentials ready, and I didn't graduate from high school because I quit school in the middle of the year. And we had to buy the material, and it was a blue and white stripe. And Mother had to make the uniforms to their, you know, they told us what we had to have, and she got them all made. And I come down to the LDS hospital in March. The snow and rain and cold, and I had to sleep out on a screen porch. Didn't know a soul. Oh, I was ready to turn right around and go home. I stayed 4 days. That was the end of my nursing career. And nothing was ever, the folks didn't get angry at me or anything, but boy, you know, you'd feel like killing somebody doing that. But Frances got to wear out all the uniforms. Mother fixed them over into dresses for her, so she wore them out. But they took us, and the hospital was big then. To then, it's a lot bigger now, but then it seemed like an enormous place to me. And there was the grouchiest little old lady that was the head of nurses. I can see the little bitty yet. Nobody liked her. You could tell just by looking at her that she wasn't going to be.
You weren't going to like her. Just know I'm not going to like her. Yeah.
She took her from the very bottom of the floor, where the laundry and all the junk was, and took us on every floor, opened every cabinet, and told us what was in it, right to the top, everything. We was to remember every bit of it. Now, if you're sick for anything, come and get it and don't ask any questions. Well, that scared the hell out of me. I wasn't going to swear today. And so we got then we had to get up at 5 o'clock and go to the church meeting. And it was, it still continued with storm and cold and rain, and I was so homesick. And then we had a prayer meeting after this other meeting. Oh, dear me, I was homesick. So one day I just decided to go home, so I went home. Got the bus was in a stagecoach then, and went home. I didn't say kiss my foot, no nothing. I just left and went.
You weren't there for the next roll call.
No, I wasn't there. I don't think they went looking for me either. Oh, that's what they did to me that capped the climax. They put me down in the laundry to work. And oh, that was a smelly place. Horrible. And
you didn't think that was part of nursing?
oh, I didn't think so, but that's where everybody had to start, I guess. That's where they started me. Well, there was several others too, but I just went home. But I don't ever remember Mother and Dad saying one word to me about that. So I guess it was all right with them. And I've never felt bad because I don't think I'd make a good nurse. I could do for my own maybe, but not things that nurses had to do. I wouldn't like it at all. So, but look what a good nurse Alice May made. But I'd have never been able to do that. I wasn't smart enough in the first place. Then you had to study too. And my head was a little thick. It's always been hard for me to concentrate and remember what I read. It is to this day.
Did you ever have any teachers you especially liked or who really influenced your life? Any teacher?
Yes, I never had any problems with teachers. I always liked. There was only one teacher, that was when we was in the 7th and 8th grade. His name was McCartney. And he was a mathematics teacher, and you know, that was hard for me. And I didn't like him in the first place either. And he was, you know, he'd take kids in the 7th and 8th grades and whale them. He'd beat them. And he left the room one time, and I don't know, it was somebody in the back let a spitball go, you know, on an elastic, how they used to do. And he came in just as it flew by my place. It wasn't me that done it, you know. But anyway, I was going to be blamed for it. And he started toward my desk, and all these great big The guy's name was Malvey, his last name, and boy, he's as big a man as you are now. Then, and boy, he left the room. They'd have beaten him if he'd have laid a hand near me. But that's what he used to do to the girls anyway. They just beat him. There was another one years ago, Martin was his name. He used to boil the daylights out of the kids too. They don't do that anymore, do they? Which they shouldn't.
End up with a lawsuit.
Yeah. But our English teacher, we liked real well. And Joe, there was one teacher that, she just, everything that Joe did was perfect, you know. We used to kid him about it. He used to say she had a case on him. Of course, this was when we was juniors and seniors in high school. And
do you remember when cars and things like that came? Cars and electricity? And
yes, I sure do. I remember when we got our electricity. Come down right in the middle of the floor and you had to pull a string to turn it on. Through the ceiling, you had to pull a string to turn it on.
was that exciting, or do you even remember it being exciting?
No, we just come to life. I never thought anything about it. None of us did. The only thing that saved us from washing chimneys for the lamps and filling the coil oil lamps, we always had to do that. That was our job, one of our jobs. Gilbert and, who was it, Gilbert and Russ, I think, one time wanted to change jobs with Florence and I. And they lasted one day. Because we used to have to empty the pots, you know, go out to the outdoor place and do all that sort of thing, and the dishes, and you know. So they just lasted one day and they went back. We was cutting the kindling and getting in the coal and things like that. But they didn't stay with their bargain. They didn't like our job. Gosh, I've washed many and many a lamp chimney. That's all.
Which would you have rather done if you'd have had your druthers, the boys' jobs or the girls'?
Oh, I didn't mind splitting wood. When we did our dishes, you know, we used to be the arguments as usual. Who dries, whose turn, who's drying. Dad would say, you wash and you dry. So you wash and you dry. There was no more said about it. But we didn't get jangled too much. But if it wasn't done right, we was brought back to do them over, you know. This is when we was real young. Florence and I remember. And, you know, maybe we wouldn't, in a hurry and wouldn't slick up real good, but we was brought back to do it over. We had to do it over and do it right. So everything we learned, we learned to do right. That's why I wonder about Frances not being a good housekeeper. Or Florence, because mother's house was spotless. You gotta go.
No.
You took off your shoes to rest. see how my foot swells? Both of them.
What do you have to say about the changes that have come in your life through the years?
Well, my gosh. I can't see any other things that could happen that would be much different than what's now. What on earth else could come? Think of what I have seen. I've seen the electricity come. I've seen the cars come. I've seen heart transplants come. I've seen, well, everything. All this this thing, I don't understand one darn thing about it. This I don't understand. It's all new to me. It's all, just I can't understand it. So I can't see what else could come, really, in the next, well, I'm not going to live too many more years, I don't think. It's only going to be 50 more.
You don't have an approach like Grandma Thompson. You'd like to live another 80 years to see how many more things can possibly happen.
I would like, if I could feel all right, that'd be fine, but boy, I'm getting so old and decrepit now. No. But I'll keep going as long as I can.
Tell us about a few more of the first things. The first telephone.
Well, the first telephone. Gosh, we didn't have a telephone in our home until I went to work in the telephone office, and I was 17 years old then. 18, I was 18. That's the first telephone we had. But the first ones, I can't, you know, they were, I saw lots of those, you know, where there was on a box on the wall, and you turned to ring the operator, you know. And I've seen lots of those, but you know, we didn't have that. We had, the first one we had, I think, we had, it stood on a stand. It just seemed, you know, you could sit it down, but it was tall. You could hold on to it right here in the middle of the mouth.
With the receiver.
And then the receiver hung on the side. But the cars, I can remember when the first Fords came into Park City. Well, we rode around before that time, though, in an old, do you remember the Jeffords at all?
Well, I remember the name, yeah.
Yeah. Well, he was the sheriff there, and that was during Prohibition. And they had a Pierce Arrow, and it was high. Their daughter was she was in Joe's class at school, but she ran around with our gang. And they had a candy store. They used to name, Irene was her name, and they called her Jelly Beans. Because she'd go in the boys, she'd give all the boys a handful of jelly beans. But anyway, they had a car, and they'd go up Main Street, and Mrs. Jefford she was a stately old soul, you know. She was kind of big, and she'd sit like this in the car. It makes me think of Aunt Nell sitting in her old Maxwell. It'd be raining, and here they'd be going up Main Street, and she'd be sitting in the back seat, and him in the front driving, and this umbrella over going up the street in that old relic of a car. And Irene got it one time. They let Irene, and she married no, she didn't marry him. It was Pappy, the married Lindsay girl. What was his name?
Oh, Roach?
Roach. No,
Oh, not
that wasn't it. That wasn't him. Oh, well, you wouldn't know anyway. But anyway, they got the car one time, and we all went for a ride. And we went way down below town. We thought we'd been 100 miles, you know. Well, the first thing that happened, we got a flat tire. Nothing to fix it with. So they had some blankets in the car. And the boys rolled those blankets up and stuffed in the tire. And that's how we got home. But every time you get in the car and go somewhere, there was a flat tire. Every time. But Sutton's bought the first group of Ford cars into Park City. And I'm kind of rough on the years, you know. I don't remember, but it was early. I've got a picture that shows them lined up there along where the post office is now, next to they had a furniture, Andrews Furniture. But Uncle Huddy had an old Maxwell we used to ride around in after he got rid of the horse and buggy. I rode around Sugar House many times in their horse and buggy. And Aunt Mel always sit like this, you know, so straight, just like a poker was up her back. And then they got this old Maxwell car, and it'd go chugging along. It reminds you of the one old Jack Benny had on the radio show years ago, you know. And we'd go riding through Sugar House, think we was queen bees.
I see Jack Benny's old Maxwell was auctioned off here last week.
Oh, was it?
Mm-hmm.
Wonder what they give for it. Plenty, I'll bet.
$350,000.
Oh, imagine.
What did it cost new? $300? Oh,
Something like that.
Yeah.
Okay, here's another question. How would you like to be remembered?
Oh.
What do you want us to all remember you as being?
You haven't got very many pleasant thoughts. You'll have to make those up yourself. Of course, you know, after you're dead, that's when all the pleasant things are said. I don't know. I have lots of good, nice things said about me now. You should read my Christmas cards. My gosh. Why, I must be an angel. And you know, I love to hear it. And I know I'm not an angel. But I've tried to help people, haven't I?
Yeah.
I've been very good at that. And Joe was too. Joe was very big hearted.
See, that statement right there epitomizes the Gwilliam family, doesn't it? To help others. I mean, it's obviously a characteristic of Mary and Dad, and apparently of Tom and Russ and everybody else.
You can say that.
Does that originate with the generation before? Does that originate with your mother?
With your mother?
Oh yes, I should say.
Well, it may or may not. I think it would have held true to Grandma Thompson.
Yes.
And probably through them into the Tanner line.
The Tanner line that we knew were all like that. Gosh, they were wonderful people.
I don't know that this is a gene you inherit, but you tend to imitate, imitation, but as short a time as I knew Mother, she was totally dedicated to someone else.
Always.
Who was the first person other than you and Joe that you took into your home to care for and look after?
Well, we never really took anybody right into our home, but
you assumed responsibility.
I assumed responsibility for lots of. You know, during the the First World War, there was lots of people without paying, you know. But Joe and I always shared. I could name you several. I wouldn't want to do it because they're still living and, you know, they're good friends of mine. But gosh, we helped save them from going hungry lots of times. Always, and Joe was just as much that way as I was. We both, we really spent our life, you know, trying to do for others. I'm not bragging and anything like that, and I'm not boasting either. But that was one of the things that we did. I know, and did a lot of. Enjoyed doing it.
Did you think about doing it, or did you just
we'd see somebody in trouble, and we'd just do it. Something that had to be done, we'd do it. We did an awful lot of that.
Mary was talking to me the other day about how funeral expenses were paid with my dad and also with Mother. They tried apparently to maintain some insurance, usually through a lodge affiliation. IOOF, or Woodmen of the World, was Mother's, wasn't it? Woodcraft, Ladies of Woodcraft, yes. Joe and Mary would become aware that the premiums were not being paid, and without saying anything to anybody, they just paid them, maintain it. And then when Mother needed some burial expense, it was there. The policy was there.
The full policy.
And this was done without anybody knowing anything about it. When Russell died, there was the necessity of a burial plot. There was a spot left down here in the Murray City Cemetery, which had been purchased originally by the American Legion out of Eureka, where Dave was the adjutant. They'd come in and bargained to buy the remnants of a lot next to our mother and father.
Bought 2 spaces.
2 spaces. And when Russ died, they brought him up here, and Mary went to check it out. The American Legion had defaulted on their payment on that particular thing. It was in default. Without anything being said, Mary and Joe just finished paying it. I don't know what it cost her. She's never said. Probably wasn't a whole lot.
I can't remember, but it wasn't too much.
They paid the balance on the site, and then also paid for opening the grave, and the opening and closing, which was included in one price. But I'm aware of this on a number of occasions, this type of thing which they just did. They didn't ask anybody, they just go ahead and do it without any expectation of any benefits for themselves from it.
You
And when she says they didn't take anybody into her home, I'd have no object to that.
That's right. Just, we did take Jim into our home. And he was with us until we got married.
Well, when I came back from California, I had a bed and board for nearly a month.
Well, so did Charlie for a long time after he came out of the service. And so did Bob, Gwilliam, Russell's Bob. We took him in when he was down and out one time. He remembers that too. But you know, I've just kind of forgotten those things, you know.
One other question before this runs out. How traumatic was it for you to lose your babies?
Well, that was kind of rough, although I was sick the whole time, and there wasn't much that I could... I'll wait until we get back because it turned off. Well, I was sick, as I've told you, right from the very beginning. I spent most of the time in and out of the hospital, and I ended by having 7 convulsions, and I lost the baby in the 8th month. It didn't go full time, and that part of it, the baby being born, that I don't remember any, but because I was just out. I was out for several days. But, of course, Mother and, you know, the doctors explained it all to me.
Did you know the baby had died before?
Well, no, before it was born, no. They didn't either. They thought it was going to be all right, but they wanted in the 7th month they wanted to take the baby, and you see, you would have known me if you'd ever seen me. I was yellow as saffron. My feet and ankles were swollen 3 times that size. I used to have to wear Joe's bedroom slippers to come down to the doctor, and had to come often. And then it was the kidney problem, you know. And I wish I wouldn't lose a thought. I was telling you what about the...
Still talking about the new baby. The baby you didn't survive.
They were going to take it in the 7th month.
Oh, in the 7th month they were going to take it, and I said, no, I don't want you to do that. And Mother was with me, and she kind of wondered about it too. She thought that I'd better try, you know, and I said, no, I'm afraid I'll lose it if they take it now. And I lost it anyway, but I don't know how long it had been dead. Not too long, I don't think. But I never had much feeling of it because it was so poorly nourished. It only weighed about 3.5 pounds, something like that. Then it was a boy, and it was all hair. He had lots of dark hair. You know, I always said if I had a baby boy, I wasn't going to name it Joe. And I always felt bad that I said that. Why I said it, I don't know. But anyway, I didn't have the baby. But I was awful sick all the time. And you know, I gave things away that I didn't know I had given them away. I didn't know who I'd given them to. Some of my nice pillowcases, things like that. Crazy things. I did crazy things when I was pregnant. So I was just awful sick the whole time. Right from the very start.
Were there any other really hard times in your life?
My worst times was to go with the illness. Of course, that lasted quite a long time, but outside of that, we had a good life together, very good. Because I do the toilet a flip, will you please? See? But that's the only real. Joe had lots of trouble in their family, but because his brother Roy was poorly and spent some time in the mental hospital.
Is there anything you would do over? Or would you do everything the same?
Oh, I don't know that I'd change an awful lot. I really don't. I think I've done the best I could do. A lot of people wouldn't think that, but I do. I feel like I think I've taken care of myself. I took good care of Joe. I've helped take care of others. So I don't think there's anything really. Of course, I could do without the illness, Joe's illness. That would be one thing I would wish we'd never had. But he started, even before we left Park City, he started with that. So that lasted long. But the last one was a good 7 years. But we had a good life together. Didn't anybody had any better, I'm sure. We didn't have any problems.
You tell everybody how to live a long, happy, prosperous life.
Can I tell them? Let them get out and earn their own. I can't. Isn't that right? If they want to make their own, I can't make it for them. That's for sure. I think we've covered most everything.
We've got about 2 more minutes, or 1 more minute.
One more minute. If I think of some more interesting things, of course, you know, a lot of mine was just fun things that we did in school and out of school. If I think of some more interesting things, of course, you know, a lot of mine was just fun things that we did in school and out of school and after school.
I would think we've said something now in 8 hours.
Yeah.
That's how much
Is
we've
that
got
what
on
we've
tape.
been doing?
We've got 8 hours on tape.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Have you, no predictions on what you think the future will bring for
Oh,
everybody?
heavens. I can't predict, that's for sure. Let come what may, I'll go along. I can get mad at some of the things that's going on now, but what good does that do?
Well, you seem through your life to have been able to accept almost anything that came in your life.
I'm like my mother that way. Whatever came, you got through it. And I think going through Joe's sickness and Joe's illness, I showed that very well.
Going through 9 years of dating.
Yes, 9 years of dating, and they were good years. He didn't have a lot of money, and neither did I, but we did a lot of exciting things. And then when we were when he went to the post office, we always took our vacations. And they always run into about 3 weeks, sometimes a month. And so, we took them, you know, especially after we moved down here. We always took good vacations. And enjoyed them. I've seen a lot of the western part of the country. I never went back east until I went on those tours. But Joe missed out on those. There was just a few things that I'd done that we had planned to do that we didn't get to do together. Both of us always wanted to go to Hawaii.